Court has urged the Election Commission to include Aadhaar cards, voter ID cards, and ration cards as a basis for people to vote. This amid a raging debate around what's being called the special revision of electoral rolls in election-bound Bihar. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi is saying that just as, quote unquote, the election in Maharashtra was stolen, there is an attempt to do the same thing in Bihar. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, we'll be looking at what unfolded in the Supreme Court today. The Supreme Court has asked the Election Commission to consider Aadhaar, ration cards, and voter ID cards as permissible certifications of identity so that people can vote and nobody is left out. While the Supreme Court did not stop the exercise by the Election Commission to revise the rules, it did question the timing and the practicality. And at one point, the judge remarked in open court that if he was asked to produce some of these documents in a short time frame, even he may not be able to do so. The issue has become a huge point of debate between the Modi government and the opposition. As I mentioned, the leader of the opposition is saying that this will lead to an election that is less than free and fair. The judges today acknowledge that the issue goes right to the root of democracy. Joining me now is our special guest, our newsmaker today, senior advocate Vrinda Grover is with us. She is somebody who has also appeared for the petitioners in this case, asking for every voter, every legitimate voter to not get left behind in Bihar. Vrinda, thank you for your time. How hopeful are you after the Supreme Court response today? Because although it did ask the EC to consider the Aadhaar, the voter ID card, and the ration card, it did not actually issue an instruction. It did not actually issue an order to that effect. What is the significance of what happened in Supreme Court today, ma'am?
I think what was brought out very clearly and which fell often during the course of a rather long hearing from the court itself, that the design, the scheme, the process seems to have an inherent systemic flaws, which there is a huge likelihood of a lot of people getting left out, excluded, and many of those have actually voted in the past, including in the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. So many of those are likely to be excluded, and many more who should come in may not be able to come in because the hurdles that are being placed through documents, through timeline, are some that a large strata of society across the country and including in Bihar will not be able to meet the demand that is being made. When the Supreme Court says to a constitutional body authority like the Election Commission of India, which is independently mandated, that this is the prima facie view of the Supreme Court, that in the interest of justice, those were the phrase used by the Supreme Court today, these three documents should be included. And in fact, the council on behalf of the Election Commission, etc., were repeatedly saying, and it is said even in their form, that this list is indicative, it's not exhaustive. If this is their stand, and if the court has also, after hearing our arguments, felt that yes, there are other documents which are necessary to ensure that every person's universal adult suffrage is upheld, it is really now would be very astonishing and would cause serious concern if after this direction, this suggestion, this order, this view of the Supreme Court, the Election Commission doesn't deem it necessary. Because what is the harm? How will it hurt the process? There is not, they themselves are saying there can be more documents. What is very interesting is that many of the documents that they are asking, those are actually issued on the basis of these documents. But there is the vulnerable, the marginalized, the poor, the migrant do not have the 11 documents that are asked for. So you will necessarily remove them from the list. They may already be there in the 2003 rolls. They will now fall out. So you are actually diminishing universal adult suffrage.
Let me ask you this, the counter argument. I hear all your arguments. The counter argument that the Election Commission is making, or those who are supporting this exercise are making, is that there needs to, that Aadhaar is not equal citizenship, because Aadhaar can be given to children under, people under 18. It can also in certain circumstances
To
be given to foreign
residents.
citizens.
Yes.
Yeah, So this so one Aadhaar. So therefore, if there is to be quote unquote a cleanup of the rolls so that there is no falsification taking place in the voting process, this exercise is necessary. How do you respond to that? Because the Supreme Court has not actually stopped the exercise.
Yes, and nor was it asked to. Nobody argued for the exercise to be stopped. That was not even a prayer made by anybody on the petitioner side. Firstly, just for speaking for myself, I did not and I am not asking for Aadhaar for a host of reasons. Let us not forget there was a marathon hearing and two judgments of Puttaswamy which affirmed our right to privacy and said the state will not have access to all my information. So, and the state actually wanted to and has tried very hard to link Aadhaar to EPIC, the election voter ID card. So,
Yeah.
Aadhaar has its sets of concerns and issues. But coming to the heart, to the nodal point that you're saying, let us just remember India has been having elections now since 1950 or whenever. This is not the first time either the electoral roll is being updated, even revised, including an intensive revision or a summary revision. These by the Election Commission of India. This is done periodically and regularly. Suddenly we are being told, oh, there are all these concerns and a purification for integrity. These things happen regularly. You and I got onto the electoral roll. How? We apply. What is being done here, and this is the insidious aspect of SIR. There is a way in which it is now being linked to the Election Commission of India via the ERO to decide who is a citizen. That is not the constitutional mandate of the ECI. That is the mandate of the government of India, and that follows a particular legal process, including, and which is also what the court pointed out, you will have to give me a hearing, you will have to have a quasi-judicial inquiry. What is being envisaged here, and this is how it is being peddled to all of us. Oh, we are making sure duplication is not there, migrants are not there. There is no, is there anybody's case by data? Not because the government says so, that's not data. That suddenly there has been some influx after 2024. These are bogies that are being thrown at us and we are falling for them. If somebody will apply from a range of documents, they will go on it, they will verify, does this person ordinarily reside here? If anybody, whether in government or otherwise, has an objection and says, no, X is not a citizen, that person has to go and object. What is being told today is, if you do not put up one of these 11 documents with your enumeration form, it means you are not a citizen and you will be
So
out. What does that mean? It's not just the right to vote, and the right to vote for the poor. Let me emphasize this. Who votes in largest numbers in this country? Not the rich, not the middle class. Let's recall those images of those long snaking queues. It's the poor. Why do they vote? They have a greater commitment to democracy because they are not privileged enough to fly off and buy citizenship in UAE, Portugal, whatever. Secondly, that is the sole lever through which they create state accountability. Remove the poor. No policy, no decision, no action of the state will be accountable to the poor and the marginalized. That is the section that is going to be hit.
I totally sort of understand your concerns, but what I want to ask you is if personally you're not driving home the importance of Aadhaar because you think there are other issues with it, and you're not asking for a suspension of the exercise per se, how does this process continue but also ensure that nobody is left out? In other words, what is the specific ask?
So, insofar as the suspension is concerned, today it was not argued for by the petitioners' councils. I'm not saying that we're not saying that. We did not argue on that today. That is all. We did not press that argument. We are saying if an SIR is to be conducted, what is this timeline you have given? Every procedure, as per mandate of multiple judgments of the Supreme Court, any procedure adopted has to be reasonable, fair, and not arbitrary. This timeline, is that migrant worker going to rush back just now with no money in his pocket to upload maybe a form and asked of documents which they don't have, or maybe they are just not important enough anymore in this country's vision. Secondly, so the timeline is a problem. Why does this have to be completed before the Bihar elections? 2024 elections were done. There was a summary revision done from November 2024 to January 2025. Those who are dead have been deleted. These are regular exercises ESI is doing. It's not the first time happening. It's being presented to us because today, as I said, it's trying to do more than constitutionally mandated to do. What we are saying, therefore, is you can conduct, and they've said they're going to do this nationwide. So there are many challenges that are being posed even in the court. You can continue this, de-link it to the elections in Bihar, which may have to happen either in October or earliest by mid-November. This is an exercise which is a very, which, as the court itself said, goes to the heart of democracy. And even one person left out is to shatter the vision that Baba Sahib Ambedkar said for this country. So therefore, presently, let the roles be done. There is no rush. Don't put any draft roll out. Don't put conditions that people cannot meet. And that exercise, wherever there is arbitrariness, there is unreasonableness, it will have to be rectified. That is the ask.
Let me ask you finally, there is going to be another hearing of the Supreme Court before the publication of the first draft of these rules. The Supreme Court, as I said, stopped short of an instruction today. But are you hopeful that given the observations, not to try and read the minds of the judges, but given the observations that were made in open court about the timelines, about the practicality, about how this goes to the root of democracy, the judge saying at one point that even I won't be able to produce these documents so very quickly, are you hopeful that the Supreme Court will intervene in time? Because sometimes even courts take their time to reach a decision.
You're right. We saw that in the electoral bonds matter. So I know what happens when you do not deal with an issue with the urgency. Therefore, I think the way the court has mentioned in its order that there are concerns with the kind of demand that you're putting. It will hurt particularly the marginalized groups. Secondly, the fact that the court insisted, despite the other side, the ECI and others, asking for it to be post the publication of the draft roll, and the court said no, we want to hear the matter, and a strict timeline of replies, rejoinder, etc. being set shows to us that the court is concerned that in even see the court is going to presume the constitutionality of give a bona fide of a process that a constitutional authority is undertaking. That is how the court will look at the bona fides of this till we are able to establish it otherwise. Therefore, the fact that the hearing is before that for final arguments actually communicates the concern that the court has, and the concern that people should not, whether deliberately, knowingly, or inadvertently, people should not be excluded. And I just want to end with saying this. Please remember, as I said, the vote is the only thing that the poor today has to ensure that the state occasionally listens to them. Secondly, you have all my rights, entitlements, most of my freedoms under Article 19 of free speech, of assembly, association, travel, as well as entitlements like Narega, rations, etc., all flow from me being a citizen. If you put that into jeopardy, you are actually not just, you are taking away my right to vote, but you are actually completely destroying those people.
It is your central argument that it is not for the election commission to decide who is a citizen and who is not.
Absolutely. That's what the constitution says. That's what the law says. That is not the mandate of the election commission of India. And it can't try and perform that role in the guise of an SIR.
Yeah, very important. And it's also important to say this is not about Bihar. This is something that will impact every state, and in the end, by the way, every political party. So that's important to remember as well. And I think the next hearing of the Supreme Court will be critical. Thank you, Vrinda Grover, for explaining it in such a sort of accessible manner. Thank you, and thanks for your time. And we'll reconnect after the next hearing. Thank you and take care.
Sure. Thank you, Barkha.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.